What's up? What's up, y'all? Happy Sunday. It's November now. Times are changing, aren't they? This is one of the biggest weeks yet. It is the biggest week yet in terms of what's going on in the world. I mean, especially here in the United States. But it's Sunday, and Sunday is a really important day. Even if you're watching the replay and it's not Sunday, look at what Sunday represents. It's a day in which everyone is on the same page in that it's the beginning of the week of sorts. And if you're living your life just in such a flow where you aren't even aware of what day it is, well, one, you should be aware that that's actually happening with you, that you aren't even aware of what day it is. Um, and it's not to say you shouldn't have a flow and a cohesion to your weeks, but there's something to be said about being aware of where you're at relative and in the context of the greater world. Because if you're just flowing through your life as if today's Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or whatever, or Friday, and it doesn't really matter to you, look at that for yourself. Because consider this: most people, Monday means something to them. Like they go back to work. Or maybe, you work on Sundays. But it's like this reset of sorts. And it's an opportunity for you to calibrate yourself. Yeah, calibrate. If you don't know what that word means, look it up. It's an opportunity for you to calibrate yourself to the greater collective. And I like to do this on Sunday because a lot of people wait until Monday and then they just fall into their week and they aren't even really ready for what's happening. And okay, there's a phrase that I say a lot. It's that the starting point is the end point. It's so profound when you really understand what that means. But if your starting point of your week is chaos, not really knowing what you're going to do, kind of a haphazard plan thrown together, or like you just know you got to be somewhere at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, like consider that and where you're going to end up that week, as opposed to you taking 20 minutes today to set out a clear plan of how you want the week to go down, what the outcome is that you want, who you're going to be in the week through every moment and every decision that you make. Like, what is that character? How are you going to express yourself? Okay, consider which one would you rather be? Like, for real, look at that. Because we live in a world where it's basically glorified. And you see it in media, you see it on social media, especially the stuff that can get shared, is like this glorification of being kind of lazy or like kind of like chaotic, where you don't really have a clear plan, you kind of just go with the flow. And that's a recipe for disaster, especially with where the world is headed. And so, what is it? What does it really look like for yourself to live as this best version or this best expression of yourself? I know those phrases get overused and overplayed, and I have yet to see someone out there talking about being the best version of yourself that's actually living it day in, day out, every single breath, every single moment, except a handful of people. Those people aren't actually as public about it as they could be. So that's why I'm making this. So here's some common sense reasoning of how you can go into your week and set yourself up for success through taking maximum self-responsibility right here, right now, and in every moment moving forward. So this is what I just spent the past hour doing. So every morning I wake up, every morning I wake up and I do a few things. One, I read some blogs on self-forgiveness, because when you understand self-forgiveness and what it does to release stuff from you, and then the process of committing yourself to become a better version of yourself and act in a way that's best, like, it is next level. So there's two blogs I read every morning called Heaven's Journey to Life and Creation's Journey to Life. Then right after following that, I do my own self-forgiveness writing. So I'm working through points within myself. Then I use a program called TechnoTutor to reprogram my mind. Subconscious programming, it's the bomb. I make videos on it. I'm not going to go into it here, but I do that every single morning without fail. No choice, no option. I just do it, even if I'm traveling. But then, like today, Sundays, this is something that's real practical for you. So I use this whole planner, okay? This is what it normally would look like on an empty week, all right? But I use this, and I have a calendar on my computer, and I sync them up. Because if you got one calendar over here that's saying some stuff and some other calendar over here that's saying some other stuff, which one are you going to trust? right? How are you ever going to take on more responsibility and be consistent and actually be worthy of making more money and deserving more money in the current world as it is? But like, if you want to be rich, you got to deserve it. And I know that that's going to trigger a lot of people, but we got to look at what's here. And by deserving, I don't mean like you have to be some morally superior person or something like that. I'm saying you have to understand how money works, how it comes in, how you can capture some of it, and then you can reinvest the money and have it go out in a way that's sustainable so you can build wealth. And then my recommendation is you do what's best with that money, best for everybody. Because if you just make a bunch of money and you're set and you're in your little, house or your property, you're about to be paranoid. And who are you then? You're just a selfish asshole. Okay. So use that money for what's best. But in order for you to actually get more money and be a more effective person, you got to understand time, your attention, your resources are all very, very important. You got to have clear understanding of them and understand how it works together. It's like a system. And it's all can work symbiotically and synergistically with yourself and other people, or it's just going to be some mess. Okay, so I suggest not having a mess. Now this was the end of last week, and I go through and after everything is done, I actually cross it off because that way I know it's done. It's amazing. You have such peace of mind when you know things are done instead of just guessing like, oh, I think I did it, or I feel pretty good about it. It's like that's pathetic. Like actually know yourself, know thyself, right? It's like an age-old phrase. But I'm looking ahead of the upcoming week, right? I've got invited onto a podcast this week. I'm talking with a bunch of people I haven't spoke with in a while. We got election day on Tuesday, so that's gonna be fun. We're gonna do a watch party with some of my colleagues and that, and then just looking ahead at the upcoming week. So I see that, right? And again, this is about Sunday. It's a day where you get to look ahead at the upcoming week. And I've seen myself in the past weeks where I was intentional and weeks where I wasn't intentional about how I used Sunday specifically. And even if it's 30 minutes of your day, to put that in and understand how you want your week to go. And you can't be super rigid. You have to be flexible with it, but you do have to have a structure, right? It's like a river. You want to go with the flow? Well, the best way to do that is have a structure so that the flow can go through it. Otherwise, you're just flowing and you're just going to dissipate, and nothing really is going to change for yourself or for the world. This is just for people who want to actually make an impact on the world. So if you're content just going with the flow, feeling whatever which way, then don't watch this. Now, as I look ahead, and then I look at the other stuff in my week, I keep a note going of all the stuff that I have to do, and I write it in a specific way. And if you want the details on that, you have to be part of the Self-Perfected group, because in there I actually break down and I'll show you screen shares of how I do this, because I've done this stuff for years. I've learned a thing or two. Because your mind, our minds, are all scattered with a bunch of open loops. An open loop is like the fact that you probably have some Amazon package that you haven't returned yet, and it's like nagging you. But it's subtle. It's so subconscious, and you only think about it once a day, but it's still there. Okay? So there's a way to capture all that stuff, put it in a note, and then the responsibility comes in, where you can actually take action on all that stuff in a very systematic way, knock it out. You'd be amazed at what you can do in 1 hour. Then guess what? You have 23 more hours today to do whatever you want with. But this kind of stuff, this kind of thinking, this is now the bigger picture. This is self-responsibility. Self-responsibility can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But in simplest terms, it means the ability to respond to your environment instead of react to it. Think of your spouse or your friend says something and you react to it. You probably do something stupid if you're just reacting. However, you can also take that information in, process it, breathe, and then discern and decide, hey, what's the best thing to do here? It's probably not emotionally react. Okay, how do I respond to this in a way that's best? And then you can accumulate this responsibility. Cool thing is, the more responsibility you accumulate and you take on, and it doesn't just happen overnight, this is a process that takes days, weeks, months, years, decades, but the more that you take on, as long as you do it in the right way, the more money you're going to make, the more impact you're going to have, the more fun you're going to have, and that's fulfillment. We have an epidemic going on right now of young guys especially that don't have any clear vision for the future. It's fucking sad. It's like the most excitement that you get is like playing video games. And that's depressing, okay? Even though it's stimulating your brain, so you think it's not depressing, when that video game's turned off and you have to go back to work or whatever it is this week, it's like this up and low, high and low of like just coping through life instead of actually being here and living. And so there's this epidemic happening where young guys don't have this sense of purpose or something that they're contributing to. And that gets real dangerous real fast, because if guys don't have a sense of purpose that they're contributing to that's actually best for society, someone else is going to come along and then they're going to start thinking it's a good idea to go and do things that aren't best, that are actually destructive to themselves and to society. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a world where I have to be afraid to go outside. And I know that's actual reality for a lot of people, where it's like, especially if the sun goes down, like get inside, or even in general, to even go outside and walk down the street, like it is dangerous. Okay? I'm here to change that and to take as much responsibility as possible, along with my colleagues and the other people who are also taking on as much responsibility as possible, to go into the system. Not change the system, not revolt against the system, but go into the system itself and then purify it from the inside out. Because our starting point is different. And our starting point is to take on as much responsibility as possible to do what's best for all life. Not just what's best for the elite, or not what's best for rich, or this group or that group, or blah, blah, blah. Okay? With that, though, it's a process of who you are and who you become in that process. And it's a journey. It's a self-perfection journey, right? That's why we have this, self-perfected, okay? It's about working through the stuff. Perfection just means becoming as faultless as possible. Because you know you have faults, I know I have faults, but you also know you can work through those faults, right? You have the ability to create and you have the ability to change. And anyone that says human nature can't change is bullshitting you. They've just accepted defeat. But I know that's not true, and I can show you example after example of people who have fundamentally changed their human nature. And now they're growing and evolving and taking on more responsibility. And I know, because the look in their face, the way that their eyes shine, they're not glossed over. You can tell that they're actually here and present and with you. And when they say words, it actually means something. Like there's real agreement and real power in that, because you mean what you say. Like, have you ever been around people who say a bunch of bullshit and you can tell they don't really mean it? Okay, this is the opposite of that. This is the inverse of that. This is choosing and living and expressing every word, understanding what it really means and how it fits together into the greater context of everything. So that as we use these words and understand these words and communicate with words, that this in turn shapes the world around us. So let's make it heaven on earth. Why not? Everything we need is here. It's all here. Now it's a process of coordinating, redistributing, connecting, sharing. And that's just the process. It's a system of living. It's a way of living. And instead of thinking that all your goals and all your dreams and everything's outside of yourself, realize that that seed already exists within you. So the real question is, how do you nurture that seed? If you've ever grown a garden or grown anything, you realize that within that seed is the whole plant. Then that goes on and it spreads itself again, duplicates and replicates. Like when you see an acorn, what do you really see? You see that a squirrel could eat it? Do you just see it as the thing that, it's like this little brown thing, you like step on it and, bare feet and it kind of hurts? Or do you see that that's another tree? Or do you see that that's an entire forest? Or do you see that that single acorn, given enough time, becomes an entire city of houses and products made of the wood from the lumber? That's an acorn. That's what life is. That's what you are. Literally, you have DNA within you. You have a bunch of genetics and epigenetics, and maybe I'll screw it up, like we all do. Look at the state of the world. It's just a reflection of us. And That, though, that is the seed for more human life. And the coolest thing is that we can now change human nature and what's possible. Anything is possible now. Really realize that. But the missing piece is your level of responsibility. So are you willing to take 100% responsibility over everything in your life? Because unless you are, if you don't take 100% responsibility, you are then what's called abdicating responsibility, giving it away to something outside yourself. God, Jesus, some higher power, something that you think is better than you or greater than you. Now, I'm not saying that you can just say right now, I'm God, I'm the master of the universe. No, that's stupid. Humble yourself to realize what you've accepted and allowed yourself to become, because it's real fucked up where we're at. Yet, realize that you have the power to change, and there are tools to change. And then, instead of being this person, this being that thinks that you're separate from everything else, instead of that, consider you can take 100% responsibility over everything, and that gives you the real power. So you could ask yourself, how am I responsible for my upcoming week? How am I responsible for the fact that I don't know if I have enough money to pay my bills? How am I responsible for the fact that child slavery is still happening? And you'll start to see, based on what you're accepting and allowing, or not accepting and allowing, that's how we create reality. It's right here. So, for this upcoming week, I gave you a few examples at the beginning of this video. If you just joined, check it out at the beginning. And this is a process. However, in every moment and in every breath, you can always ask yourself, am I taking the most responsibility possible for what is here? And unless you're doing that, you're going to live a miserable life on varying levels. And you may delude yourself, or you may smoke weed, or you may drink alcohol on the weekends, or find your coping mechanism like Netflix or something. Yet, real fulfillment, real freedom comes from understanding how things truly work. And that comes from taking responsibility over yourself, everything that's happened in your life. Now you're here. Now we can work together with like-minded people. So together we can take responsibility for the whole world system. It's 100% possible. That's what I'm dedicated to. I can introduce you to a bunch of other people that are doing that too. And what better time to start than now? Because this is where the week really begins. So really consider this. And for those who have the courage and the willingness and the common sense to realize what I'm saying makes sense, reach out. Let's connect. I can plug you in. We can talk about what you're working on, different ways to support each other, because the time's now. We're about to see the craziest week yet. Election is happening in the United States on Tuesday, so this will be, well, like I said, the time's now. What are you waiting for? We are literally on a bus driving toward a cliff, about to go off, okay? How are you responsible for that? And are you the kind of person that's actually going to change to actually make a difference? If you don't know how, we can show you the how. That's the logistics thing. The real question right now is, can you actually realize this for yourself? And are you willing to take the responsibility or not? All right, y'all. Make it the best day and the best week yet.